All right. Well, if we're talking about people who are going to pay good money, we're not about to talk about that here because these are coaches, and coaches don't get paid well. We've got one rumor and one confirmed. So why don't we just really quickly chat about that before we end today's episode? And we'll start with the confirmed one because that's a less fun one. We'll end with the fun one. We're going to start with Austin appointing former FC Dallas head coach and USMNT assistant coach Nico Estevez as their newest head coach, taking over from Josh Wolf. Another one of the Triple G coaching tree landing in MLS. He had two solid years with FC Dallas before a slow start in 2024 kicked him to the curb. What are your thoughts on this one? How do you feel?
I am not on board with this. This is yet another recycled MLS manager coming off of a failed MLS stint. It's like it's just a cycle at this point. It's like there's a pool of coaches and they can only select from within that pool. Like I'd like to see a team just be a little bit more adventurous with these signings. Like Charlotte went outside of the bubble and hired Dean Smith. And look what he was able to do to that team. He turned them around completely. Like they were a team that was on the cusp of a play-in spot, like for pretty much since they existed. And now he turned them into the best defensive team in the league and fifth in the playoffs or fifth in the East. Like, let's be a little bit more adventurous here, a little bit more ambitious. Like, why do we need to keep recycling the same coaches that have failed in this league? So, one other thing I did was I took a look at similar types of hirings heading into the 2024 season. So guys that were previously managers in the league that got hired again on a new team in 2024. So we've got Phil Neville in Portland.
Hmm.
Obviously, we see how we just talked about it. We see how that's been going.
He
They were
made the
the ninth seed
playoffs.
into the expanded everybody makes it in playoffs and then got gobsmacked by Vancouver at home. Caleb Porter in New England, one of the worst teams in the league, and nearly conceded the most goals in MLS history. And then the most successful was Chris Armas in Colorado, and the most successful was seventh place in the Western Conference. So it's not a good track record. I don't think it's the way to go. I'd like teams to at least take a shot with somebody. Like I'd rather them take a shot like DC or Montreal has, where if you want to go with somebody in the league, at least take a shot with somebody who hasn't had an opportunity yet but has shown promise, as opposed to these same guys who have been fired by other teams because they couldn't get the job done. Like it's just getting tiring of seeing the same few coaches just get recycled around the league, unless you're someone like, not going to spoil it, that we'll talk about in a little bit, unless you're like in that, like, uh what's the right word, cohort of,
Cohort.
yeah, unless you're in that like legendary cohort.
Your hatred for former MLS managers is brutal, considering one of them should be coaching the USMNT right now, and he isn't. You didn't say that about Triple G. Crazy.
I didn't say that about Triple G, right?
I know what next episode's going to be. Um, no, I agree with you. This is super underwhelming for me. It's safe. He's got MLS experience. He's got national team experience. He knows Texas pretty well. Austin likes his style, but you go from Josh Wolf, who was not great. He was okay. And you got tons of options to go from here, depending on how you want to take your team and the identity. Estevez was never really bad. 2024 was bad. We got a lot of injuries, but he never took this team and made them like, I need to watch FC Dallas. They were first or second round playoff teams every year, seventh and 14th in the Shield. Nothing ever popped off the page for them to be like, oh my God. And once again, I think he brought FC Dallas back to they played today. Who's on their team? No, surely not. Right? Like, is he going to bring much of a change? No. And because Austin's kind of the same way. I couldn't tell you five players who played on Austin this year. I mean, I probably could because I have no life and I look at MLS stats all day.
Yeah, who are you
But
lying to?
yeah. But right, they weren't a team that was like, oh, this is going to be, we need to watch Austin. And I don't think he brings them to that level, right? The West is top heavy. That you've got really heavy hitters in the West. I don't think he brings them there. But do you think that Austin are going to be better off with him? That's a question.
I mean, I think best case scenario, and maybe this will come back to bite me. I think best case scenario, they're like a seven, like maybe a six, probably more likely like a seven, eight, nine seed, like just squeak into the playoffs. And I think reality is they stick to exactly where they are right now, which is like maybe a just on the cusp nine seed play in team or just missing out 10, 11, 12. So I think they stay pretty much the same. I don't think they get any better or worse, which is not a good it's not a good thing. It's a negative because you need to get better. You missed the playoffs. So
I'm with you there. I don't think they could get too much worse, but I don't see them turning into LAFC or LA Galaxy or even RSL. Like this might, I agree, it might bump into the 6 to 9 range, maybe, depending on how their offseason goes. He's shown that he's solid in player development. Assistant to the national team that saw this resurgence of the men's national team in CONCACAF, youth team managers in Spain, director of the Columbus Academy for 2 years, assistant manager under Greg. It's not splashy, but this isn't a Chicago or San Jose that needs safe and solid, right? I think they needed somebody who could enlist the trust of the front office to go say, go give me one more 7-figure player and I will make this work. I will get you not just to the playoffs, I'll get you a home playoff game, right? High expectations to warrant high spending. And I just don't think that's this guy. And for Austin to have one good year in the last 3 or 4, however long they've been around, and them not to try and break themselves into there, it feels like a miss. But I'm happy to be proven wrong.
we shall see.
Yeah.